Now you should be able to hear. Yes. Shake. Head. Shake.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, my microphone's on. I better straighten up. Okay, folks, we'll get going. Don't forget to silence your gadgets. And if you have anything for us, it goes to Mr. Curran. And I guess to get things started, we ought to do a roll call, huh?
Bell. Curran.
Here.
Freeling. Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick.
Here.
Here. Pittsford.
Here.
Ballrath.
Here.
Werfel. Here. Yarborough. Elliott.
Here.
We have 10 present.
Thank you. Minutes. Any changes to those?
Would make a motion that we approve them.
Second.
Moved by Freeling, supported by Pitchford. Any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk, or all in favor, signify by saying aye. Sorry.
Aye.
And those who aren't in favor also say aye. Minutes are approved. Requisitions.
Good morning. Does anybody have any questions about the requisition list? Great, thank you.
Presentations. Joey, you want to get us going? Thank you.
All good. All right. Thank you all this morning. I have a tribute to present on behalf of the state of Michigan to Amy Scrima for her husband, Brian Bailey. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Let it be known that on behalf of the citizens of Michigan, we extend our most profound sympathies to the family and many friends of Brian Robert Bailey upon his passing on December 4th, 2023. He was a loving and devoted husband, father, son, and friend. With dedication and love, we join the community in remembering his life and extend our condolences to everyone impacted by this deep loss. Brian was born on August 21st, 1966 in Lansing and was a resident of St. Joseph, Michigan for the past 30 years. He spent 28 of those years with his wife, Amy Scrima, and together they raised two amazing kids, Jesse and Parker. Brian received his Bachelor of Arts in Parks and Recreation and his Master of Arts in Public Administration from Western Michigan University. He retired from the Berrien County Parks in 2020, concluding an impactful 30-year career. As the director since 2008, he was instrumental in numerous additions and improvements to Silver Beach, Rocky Gap, Madeline Bertrand, and Love Creek. Brian also directed the development of the county's two newest parks, Galene River and Paw Paw River County Parks, of which he was very proud. His service extended to various organizations devoted to preserving land and increasing public use, notably as president of the Michigan Association of Counties, Parks, and Recreation Officials from 2011 to 2014, and as chairman of the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority Parks and Recreations Committee from 2017 to 2019. After retiring from the Berrien County Parks Department, Brian continued working on special projects for county parks and served as a member of the City of St. Joseph's Park and Recreation Advisory Board until his passing. Brian was a proud tribal member of the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, known by his native name. I don't want to get this wrong. All right. Lead Golden Eagle Man, perfectly describing how he shared his wisdom and knowledge with so many as an Ottawa tribal leader. In special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated in honor of the exemplary life of Brian Robert Bailey. We extend our deepest condolences to the Scrima Bailey family, as well as to his friends, colleagues, and everyone who knew him. May they accept this tribute as a symbol of the high regard which his memory is held by all those who knew him. He will be sincerely missed and long remembered. Signed by myself, Eric Nesbitt, our state senator, Garland Gilchrist, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Amy, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, commissioners. We worked with Brian and been friends for all these years. We're so appreciative of the kindness and outpouring of support that you have all shown us over these last difficult months. And he was so proud to be a part of this county and city and state, and he was a true Michigander through and through. So thank you very much for this recognition. We very much appreciate
it. If we could take a moment, Jill is here, Randy Rude is here. And I was just thinking when I saw Randy in the audience that it was about 35 years ago that we were pulling things together to acquire Silver Beach. And the senator at the time was Harry Gast. And this was before term limits, which may be things that sound good in theory, but in practice in the smaller areas of the state like where we are, having someone with seniority in the legislature was a very good thing at that moment, because we had an application with the Natural Resources Trust Fund. And Senator Gast was instrumental in getting that going. Randy, working with Bob Warren at LECO, helped pull it together. And you look at Silver Beach now, and if you looked at it in the late 80s, it was a pretty sad looking operation. Now it's a jewel in the crown of our county park system. And then Brian comes in, takes over. If you go to Galene River County Park, you have to think of Brian. And I mean, our park system, there used to be a commercial about the Pepsi challenge, Coke and Pepsi. I'd take the Pepsi challenge with any county in this country when it comes to the park system that we have. And people like Randy, like Brian, Jill, are mindful of that public trust and the legacy that comes with it. Joey, we appreciate having you here and know that you're working on things for the betterment of the folks here in southwestern Michigan. But just wanted to take a moment because sometimes you come across people who make a difference. And Brian, he's on that list. So anyway, thank you for being here. Joey, thank you for pulling together the process of getting that resolution signed. I know there's some legwork in that. Did anyone else have anything they wish to add? Or do you want to wait and do so privately? Okay, you're welcome to stick around and, but understand if anyone who's here has other business to tend to. Joey, or back to you if you'd like to do a legislative update.
I'm happy to do a full update, but I also understand that a lot of the interest is in what's going on with short-term rentals. So if you guys would rather I just focus on that, I'm happy to, cut to the quick and talk about the package that we're working on to that regard.
Why don't we do that and then see what the clock looks like?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
As I'm sure many of you are aware, our office has been working on a package around short-term rentals since, about April of last year. We've been working closely with a lot of the local government organizations, Michigan Municipal League, the Townships Association, Counties Association, as well as some of the business and industry groups like the Restaurant and Lodging, Hotel Lodging Associations. We did a tour of the district, hit Saugatuck, South Haven, St. Joe, and New Buffalo to hear feedback from residents on what they were experiencing in their communities, what they wanted to see happen, how we could address what is kind of been identified as one of the, I think, bigger issues locally in our region, and is also affecting a lot of other communities in the state. Go to Traverse City, Marquette, even Grand Rapids and Lansing are dealing with this in different ways. So we set about tackling it. I believe, unless something happens, the plan is to introduce this package next week. And the approach that we took was focusing on local control. So we did this by using a model that other states have used when going for short-term rentals or ride-sharing services, that sort of thing, where you create a registry that the local units of government can check against. So what we're basically doing is instructing Laura to create a registry that Airbnb, VRBO, these platforms would have to register their rentals with, and that individual renters of short-term rentals would also have to register with. This registry would then be available to local governments to see who's acting, who's in their region, to make sure that these people are properly licensed in their communities as well. And it creates a bunch of explicit authority for the local governments to enforce their zoning and regulatory ordinances on short-term rentals. So if there's noise ordinances being violated or occupancy being violated, it gives explicit power to the local units of government to enforce those ordinances, revoke licenses if need be. This is an issue we heard a lot about, particularly from New Buffalo, that even though most folks in local government believe they do in fact have the power to do this, a lot of people who own the properties don't believe that their local units of government have the power to do this, and lawsuits ensue. And so we were trying to make it sort of explicit and clear that this is an authority and power that local units of government have. The other side of this is that we're extending the hotel and bed tax for areas with CVBs in place down to 1 unit or more. So that'll cover all short-term rentals at that point, in addition to what they would already covers with hotels, motels, that sort of thing. We're also expanding the CVB's authority to invest not just in promotion, but also to make investments in childcare and housing. As we experience around here all the time, the hospitality industry kind of lives and dies on the local residents. And if they can't afford to live in the area that they're working in, we lose our hospitality workforce. And I mean, just this last fall, we saw several restaurants in the area, call it quits, largely because they couldn't find the workforce. Kids went back to college, and that was pretty much the end of it for them. And so, taking into consideration that housing and childcare are two of the bigger hurdles for people entering the workforce right now, especially in our region, we wanted to give that allowance to the CVBs, and not a mandate, to be clear, but just another tool in their toolbox. The final piece is a 6% excise tax that's opt-in for our cities and townships. And this was in recognition of kind of the added burden that short-term rentals have created in a lot of our communities. Michigan's kind of unique in that we don't allow our local units of government to levy sales and use taxes. So typically, if you travel, you go to Chicago. I always use Gatlinburg, Tennessee, because I went to college near Gatlinburg. There's a 1% or so sales tax or use tax that you'll pay in a lot of these cities because they recognize that one of the main drivers of their economy is tourism. And so since you're not a resident coming through, you're making use of all these public services, and that sales and use tax that you pay kind of goes towards the maintenance and upkeep of those services. We can't do that here. City of St. Joe can't put a sales tax into place. City of New Buffalo can't put a use tax into place. So the thought process here was that by having this excise tax for short-term rentals, we're acknowledging that short-term rentals are, by and large a tourist activity, commercial purpose, but also that when a lot of these short-term rentals, they were originally built, they were single-family homes, and they were contemplated, in a different way. So when you put in a hotel, of course, you're going to put in the sewer, you're going to put in the parking, if you need a red light, all that's contemplated when you build the hotel. But when you put in a single-family neighborhood, you were contemplating, mom, dad, and 1 to 3 kids, maybe 2 cars, something like that, right? That's what you're contemplating. You weren't contemplating 6 cars on the street, party every other weekend, 10 people making use of the sewer system, the roads, or the public safety calls that need to get made. We've heard some crazy stories from South Haven and New Buffalo about EMS services having to be called out, from multiple units of government, having fire trucks sitting around houses for 4 hours waiting for gas fires to burn down in swimming pools and all sorts of crazy things. So again, just sort of acknowledging this added burden exists because tourism is a part of the economy. And the hope that that'll help these local communities make ends meet, continue to be able to invest in themselves. That's basically the overview of the package as it stands. Happy to take any questions on it. Like I said, we're trying to get this rolling next week, and we've based this on some things that other states have done. So it's not a novel approach. We're using some best practices, but I'm happy to take any questions anybody has on that.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
I assume there's gonna be a fee for the registration for the Airbnb and things. What kind of fee are they looking at? Where's that money gonna go?
So that's part of the opt-in for the excise tax. The opt-in allows the communities access to the registry. And what we've done is we've capped that at, for Laura and the Treasury to administer, it's capped at 1% or $1 million, whichever is less. So the agencies have told us they think it'll cost about $100,000 to administer this. So we don't think we're going to get close to $1 million, but we built in the cap just, to make sure that it doesn't go out of control. They don't start building, systems we don't need. But the excise tax goes directly back to the local unit of government. So the Treasury is going to collect the money and then immediately remit back to the community, what they're due. So
Other questions? I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
About, gotta remember, this is 24 now. Maybe 6-7 years ago, the Michigan Supreme Court took up a case on short-term rentals. And I'm sure they'd be happy to know, I think they did a pretty nice job articulating what should happen, recognizing local zoning was involved. But I'm wondering if that case was incorporated in some way into this package that you're doing, because as you know, they talked about how many bedrooms, how many parking spaces are available, because you can't park in the yard, you can't do the bunk bed thing that so many of these places do, and they just jam them in like sardines in a can.
I know.
And they talked about, is it a private road? Is it a public street? A whole bunch of stuff. Did you all weave that in where appropriate, or what was the approach?
Yeah, so that case, and there's several other court cases that have happened since then. New Buffalo was, recently part of about 20. So
Right.
we have a lot of very recent case law to draw from. But yeah, that was all part of the drafting process. And it was an ongoing argument with some folks in the industry who don't believe those cases were properly decided. And, that's their You know, that's for them. But we did use the case law as a guiding factor, and that, you know, these are things that we believe are, you know, this is the law as we understand it, and we're stating it explicitly. And we're creating a new public act specifically to regulate short-term rentals. That's sort of the big goal here, is that there'll be a public act now that is exactly for short-term rentals. And that way, going forward, there's something that can be modified as times change and modification is needed. You know, new court cases get decided, whatever the case may be. So that was one of our goals here too. So you know, you can't create something perfect out of the gate. There's just too many corner cases. I mean, that's part of the reason it took us so long to get this introduced. Is every time we were like, all right, 2 weeks we're introducing, somebody be like, well, you know, what about the resorts? And you know, they kind of short-term rent, but they're not really residential. And we're like, yep, that's a good point. All right, we'll build in a resort exemption. All right, back around. You know, and so we know that there's going to be changes. There's going to be, you know, people that are going to come up and say, well, this kind of hits me, but it's not intentional. So we're trying to keep that in mind too, as we work through this, that this is probably something that's going to need to evolve over time as this, you know, short-term rental concept keeps moving forward.
Is there a number of nights, consecutive overnights, that will be part of this package?
Yeah, so we define short-term rentals as a use for less than 30 days, a rental for less than 30 days. And the tax kicks in after 14 days within a calendar year. We aligned that with the IRS standard. So the IRS says if you're renting a room out for more than 14 days, you're a business and you have to start paying taxes as such. So we figured it made sense to mirror that here. And that way, you know, if, you know, grandma wants to rent her cabin out for a few days to help make ends meet, totally fine. That's, you know, not a commercial purpose. But once you cross that 14-day line, the IRS is saying it's a commercial purpose. So we should also acknowledge it's a commercial purpose.
Okay. Another question?
Yes, and I was at the Hager Township Board meeting in January, and they put together a preliminary idea that they were going to have a contract with a company that was going to go in and survey all of the rental properties in their area and try to figure out if their roles of what they said were rental properties actually met the amount of people who were in the community. So in this legislation, does it address anything when it comes to what local governments have already done to try to figure this out versus a state registry that might be different?
So we're trying to let the locals continue to do what they want to do. And our thought was that by and large, it's a good idea for local governments to sort of maintain their own list. And the registry is then something that they can check against. So in the case of Hager, one, hopefully this will make it easier, because the minute the registry exists, Airbnb, VRBO, those companies, they just immediately dump all of their registered users into these databases because it's easier for them. So right away, Hager in this example would get a full list of these are the ones that are on the platforms. Now, maybe you have some residents that, you know, don't want to pay the tax and they're going to credit skirt the registry for a while. That's fine. Hager can find them as they go. They'll get added to the registry, or they'll, you know, get their licenses revoked, whatever the case may be. But the goal was not to overwrite what the locals are doing, but to give them some more tools and some added support to manage this. To that point, one of the problems that we've heard a lot about is that because local governments can't levy a tax, when they do licensing for short-term rentals, they basically intentionally lose money on the enforcement, because if they ever make money, then they could be challenged as levying an unconstitutional tax and sued for it. So like in the case of the city of South Haven, they've got this whole registration and enforcement apparatus, but they're in the red about $100,000 to $200,000 every year on enforcement, because they're so cautious about the level at which they fund it, so that it never looks like they're turning a profit on it. And so that, given that burden, you know, being what it is, we're hoping that this will ease a lot of the enforcement and help, you know, keep those costs down.
Anyone else? Brian, did you have any questions?
No, sir, not on that topic. I really appreciate hearing the update.
Okay. Ma'am.
Representative, what is the House bill number in case I get any of my constituents or leaders reaching out?
There isn't one yet, because we're going to be introducing it next week. But as soon as it's introduced, I'll have Allison send around to everybody the draft numbers, the bill numbers, and everything, so you'll have all access to all that.
I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Is there anything else you wanted to mention in terms of what's going on in Lansing?
Yeah, I'd highlight a couple of things. I mean, we're at sort of a lull right now in the House because we had two people run for mayor in their respective cities last fall and win, and good for them. Best of luck to them in their new careers. But we're at a 54-54 tie, which means that nothing can pass without bipartisan support, and we're all sort of learning how to work together in that atmosphere right now. For better or worse. To that end, we're working on some bipartisan packages ourselves that I think we'll be able to get rolling in the next few weeks to month. The main one is around nuclear energy and trying to make Michigan a leader in the advanced modular reactor space. So of course, everybody's aware, news came out over the last couple of days that the Biden administration is likely to approve the $1.5 billion loan for restarting Palisades. Which we're of course very excited about. It's been a long project for us in our office pulling that together. But the Holtec also wants to put some advanced modular reactors up there over the next few years. And so we kind of identified this as an opportunity, not just for us in Michigan, but specifically in Southwest Michigan, that these reactors will likely be the first in North America, if not the world, when they begin breaking ground in a few years on them. And so we have an opportunity to sort of capture the momentum in this industry as it's growing. Holtec's already got dozens of these ordered from countries all over the world. And so I'm working with Representative Graham Filler and Pauline Wenzel and a few other Democrats to pull together a package to create a framework that would put Michigan at the front of the pack for the states in terms of incentivizing both the manufacturer, but also the knowledge economy around it, job creation and training, that sort of thing. So something we're working on around what I think is a very exciting development up in Covert. Aside from those are kind of our two big things. Short-term rentals and this nuclear energy package are big projects right now. Budget's starting in earnest for the year. I think we're expecting the executive recommendation to come down in the next 2 weeks or so. And so that'll sort of start the ball rolling. So, of course, please reach out, let us know if there's anything in the executive recommendation that you really like, that you really don't like. Both are helpful. We don't have the rescue funds anymore, and I'm trying to make sure everybody's aware of that. Last year we had to spend down the remainder of the rescue funds, otherwise we had to give it back. And given that the federal government can't keep a Speaker of the House for more than about 6 months at a time, we figured better if we spend it than give it back. So we don't have those bonus funds that we had last year for projects and that sort of thing. But that said, if there's anything critical in the county that needs investment, please let us know so we can advocate for it. We're putting our list together right now. We just met with the appropriations chair last week to sort of get an idea of where things stand and what's going to be possible with this budget. So better earlier than later, I think.
Okay, well, thank you again, Representative Andrews. If anyone has any other questions, now would be at the time. Otherwise, we'll move on to public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to share? You've got up to 2 minutes. Name and town if you wish to opine.
Ezra Scott, New Buffalo Township. Jim, before you start my 2 minutes, I'm very, very sad to hear about Brian as a former county commissioner. Worked with Brian for 6 years. A lot of the work him and I did and discussions we had were quite spirited, and it all revolved around his budget because I was all about cutting money. And then the next thing that would happen is once that conversation was over, we would talk about fishing. And that was the most important thing. And I explained to Brian that I was a little bit older than him and that there's a difference between fishing and catching, 2 different concepts. Okay, with that being said, now, Jim, okay. I wanted to come to the board this morning and talk a little bit about, I'm running for county drain commissioner. So I'm out walking door to door and I'm talking to people. The majority of the people don't have the slightest idea what this county board does. They don't even know what a commissioner is. They just vote because they see your signs or you've talked to them. The question I constantly kept getting asked, 2 of them was, what is a drain commissioner? We have a drain commissioner. What is that? And which one of the county commissioners that we elect is the drain commissioner? So this is a problem. Now, I might have a solution to this, and Mac, this just involves you, not the rest of the board. As the chief executive officer, I'm going to give you a suggestion that you take an 8:30 meeting in February, just like the president of the United States does a State of the Union, the governor does a State of the State. I think it would be awesome if you had a YouTube video at the 8:30 meeting that did a State of the County. You could tell the county, you could tell the people, the constituents, exactly what was going on in the county, our money situation, our budget, our departments, how they're functioning. I think that that might be something that we think about, but it had nothing to do with the rest of the board. They would just be here. It would be all on you. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Good to see you.
Good to be seen, Mac.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Okay, well, we can wrap up about 10 minutes early before we break for committees and chat and mingle for a minute, but we're adjourned now till 10:30.